Hello, Doodlebugs. It's Artcast, episode 11. I'm sick, and today we're going to slow things down to real time. So this is the real-time version of coloring in the Cyborg Geisha drawing I made a while ago. If you'd rather watch the time-lapse version, you can click the screen here, or there's a link in the description below. Otherwise, get comfy, grab a fresh box of tissues, because you've gone through 3 of them, and all the mucus is making an exodus out of your nose at the same time, pressure in the ears, and watch the coloring happen while we discuss finding that art career that suits your skills that you don't hate. Enjoy. Oh, I've been waiting so long to do this. In the words of Mario, here we go! Welcome back, Doodlebugs. It's Artcast, the 11th episode. I am going to be coloring in the Cyborg Geisha drawing with 3 colors that I randomly chose. It's a reddish, a orangish, and then a taupe, a gray taupe color. Yeah, we'll go with that. A mushroom. I believe it was called champagne, French for mushroom. Something like that. Anyway, to begin, let me go over some of the materials that I have been using on this drawing. It's all done on Bristol board paper, and the ink part of the drawing is done with liquid black India ink, one of my favorites, and the colors are Copic markers, which I love. I've been spending the last couple of years learning about them. Pardon me, I'm going to be trying my hardest not to be coughing into the microphone throughout this whole thing. I'm getting over a bit of a cold, and it's just at that frustrating part where your voice is a little warped and everything's making an exodus out of your face, usually in public. There's inevitably that time where I'm usually at the store or somewhere around strangers and food where I get a tickle in the back of my throat and I start coughing uncontrollably, and sometimes people are just staring from afar, and sometimes somebody's thinking they're nice by coming over and acknowledging me and asking if I'm okay, and I have to be like, I'm fine. So I'm going to try not to have a breakdown right now, and tell you a little bit more about this drawing. So it's the whole idea is based on a suggestion that I had gotten for making a Cyborg Geisha drawing, and it's very much inspired by Japanese art, classic Japanese art. I did some Google searching and found an image of a geisha looking into a mirror, so I kind of ripped off that pose and then did my own thing with it, which is what all art is. So there. As far as Copic markers go, I know I've been getting a lot of requests to do a tutorial on Copic markers, and I am wanting to. I feel a little weird about it because it is very new to me, and I'm still exploring working with markers. It's kind of similar to watercolor in the sense that you're only adding on to your paper that I assume is white, but I'll be a little more open-minded. Maybe you're drawing on a toned paper, let's say. And there is the ability to do some layering and blending with the markers in a similar way that you can do with watercolor. One thing I will say, this isn't a hard and fast rule, but in this particular piece, I was drawing on Bristol board paper, as I mentioned, and I'm realizing it's not my favorite paper for working with markers. Totally works, totally fine. I have been falling in love with marker paper, and forgive me, I don't know the exact technical specifics about it, but I find that marker paper is it's got a little bit more of a glossy surface. It's much more smooth, whereas Bristol board paper is more on the softer end. It's very porous and absorbs things, which is cool. And I do like the heavier stock of the Bristol board paper as opposed to marker paper. Seems a little more flimsy and thin. But the big difference that I'm noticing is when I use markers on Bristol board, the paper absorbs things a lot more and a lot faster. It does that with watercolor. It does that with ink. And it certainly does it with the Copic markers. And I feel like this is not very economical. It feels like it's sucking the ink out much faster. That could be me being crazy. But, these aren't cheap markers, and you do start getting conscious of where the ink's going. And I also feel like the colors aren't as vibrant, whereas with marker paper, I'm finding that glossy surface delays the absorption of the ink. So it seems. This is, again, there's no science. This is just what I feel like is happening. But it feels like the ink hesitates to be absorbed, and then that buys you a little extra time to blend multiple colors, or I guess it's like a little more economical with the ink flow. I don't know. If there's any marker experts out there, please weigh in the comment section of YouTube, or tweet me at Mary Doodles, because I would like to know just the science behind it. And when I say marker expert, I mean, you could be using them for 5 years and you're still so much more of an expert than me in the realm of markers. Yeah, so that's just a little thought on the paper. And as far as Copic markers go, though, I also get questions about how I'm liking them, and I love them. I'm loving working with marker. And I do feel like Copic markers are a little bit of the Apple product of the art world. When I first started doing art and my friends were getting into markers, Copics were the thing that you want, and they're so expensive, but oh, it's worth it. And so far I'm finding it is. And I have gone with some cheaper markers right off the bat. But the thing that got me, and I'm going to sound like such a shill, but I was researching markers, and I really appreciate that with Copic markers, you can buy refill inks, which, like one marker is, I'm going to say on average $8, depending on where you are and what color you're getting. And then I'd done the math a long time ago, but basically you can buy a big thing of ink to refill, and it just cuts down the cost a lot. And when you run out of ink, you're not chucking away a perfectly good casing or a perfectly good body with perfectly good nibs in there. You could just add more ink to it. And I just so happened to have accidentally doubled up on some stuff. I had like some old black and gray Copics from way back in college when I first bought a couple and wanted to experiment, and then it ran out of ink and I just never got the refills. And then flash forward now, I bought like a whole new set. So I had some extra bodies of markers, and the other day I was refilling some of my ones that were dying. This orange marker that I'm using in this particular drawing was dying the whole time. It was very sad. So I was refilling some of my markers, and then I found the empty old bodies and decided to get experimental. And there's still a little bit of gray ink in one. And so that's cool. That might be something to get into as I explore Copic markers a little bit more. I always recommend, if you're getting new art supplies, do the research and don't feel like you have to get the high-end set. Don't feel like you have to get all 72 colors of the high-end set. First off, I just recommend get 2 or 3, just some essentials. If like you're getting some, I'm looking at right now these toned pencils for sketching, and they come in black and then a couple shades of sepia, like a brown, and then white. And they're really great. You could like go out and like get all the colors, but maybe start with your core colors first. Yeah, and that's just a thing, because not everything is for everyone, obviously. So people might be freaking out about, oh, these materials are so fun, and then you use them and you're like, I don't get it. I don't like this at all. That happens a lot. I think that's kind of relevant to the question that I pulled for the video for this particular episode. And I only pulled one question right now. Maybe we'll have time to get to more. But I knew this was going to be a shorter one because the marker process, the coloring process went so fast on this one. I think it was maybe 40 minutes, which is pretty quick. So yeah, let me grab that question from Shipwreck Samantha, who left a comment on the YouTube channel on the previous Artcast. Samantha says, "Hey, Mary, ever since I was 12 years old, I was convinced I wanted to be a professional artist. I just never knew what that would look like. I've tried many different things, including Etsy, selling at craft fairs, and even teaching lessons, but nothing I've tried, I've come out going, wow, this is really what I want to do for the rest of my life. I feel you. I feel you, Samantha. I'm also one of those artists that does not enjoy taking commissions. You're not alone. I feel more like a tool than an artist when I take on a commission. I feel like I'm running out of options and I just have to settle for something I don't 100% love. In the end, what I really love is just to create art and inspire people, but I don't know how to make that into a career. Do you have any advice on a direction I could try? Sorry for such a long question. I love the long questions on these ones because in an Artcast, I have the time to sit and read. So thank you. Continuing, I love your videos and you are so inspiring to me. You're also the reason I started trying Indian drawing ink, which I love. Yeah, keep up the good work. Amazing. Thank you so much for the lovely words, Samantha, and for joining the cult of India ink. You're welcome. Yeah, that's there's a few things in there that, that's tricky questions that I think a lot of artists and other human beings encounter in life. Because I knew, like, when I was a kid that I wanted to do something with art and be creative. And when you're pursuing that for like a professional career, the thing that like makes your money, the thing that pays your bills, that can be hard. It's a lot of, it's like dating. You kind of have to go out on a bunch of dates and meet different careers and see what they're all about. And with everything, you'll find things that you love and then you'll find things that you hate. And some of them you'll be like, oh yeah, no, I don't want to do this at all. This is not me. And that's perfectly fine. I remember, so like when I was a kid and adults recognized, oh, you're good at drawing. A lot of times they're like, oh, you could work for Disney as an animator. I swear, I'm sure all artists out there have heard that at some point. Somebody told them that they could and should work for Disney, which is a compliment. But I do feel like it's kind of like the layman's reference as to what artists do. The people who don't know anything about art and like the jobs involved in that utilize creating art. I think like you just default to these stereotypes of like, oh, a beret smoking cigarettes in a loft, making beautiful paintings that no one appreciates, or being an animator for Disney and stuff like that. You imagine a scientist is just a person who wears a lab coat and is pouring things into beakers back and forth and telling you that everything's going to kill us. When in actuality, scientists don't always fall into that narrow little stereotype, that caricature. There's characters and then there's caricatures. And characters are a little more fleshed out. You haven't found something that really has struck a chord with you. And maybe it's a matter of continuing to search out and continuing to try new things and gaining more experiences, sometimes in areas that aren't even in art or things that are a little parallel to art, maybe collaborate with a writer. And there was a follow-up comment on my YouTube channel. Sahar Kashire left a comment in response saying, hey, I know your question wasn't directed at me, but I thought I'd try to help. If you really love just creating art in general, you could probably become a freelance illustrator or someone who illustrates art for comic books, etc. Then they go on to recognize it's a little like commissions and stuff, but it gives you a little more freedom. And Sahar, I think that's a really great suggestion. The cool thing about freelance illustrators is that it's sort of like with musicians and actors where you develop your brand, you develop your look, your thing that you're known for. Too often when people start creating art, they try to emulate the people that they admire. But I find it's much more of a benefit to create your own voice. And it's easier to do that than you think. We all just start veering toward our own thing eventually. And as long as you chase that thing that you're drawn toward, then you're good. But yeah, with anything, you're at some point going to sell out a part of yourself a little bit. This is referring to commissions. I'm not a big fan of doing commissions because oftentimes the process would be I'm putting myself out there and I'm very nervous about drawing the boundaries because a lot of times with commissions, you're working with people who don't create art or they don't quite understand the process. And so they may think that they're asking for something small, but then it turns into something big. It's sort of like if a friend were to ask you, hey, can you help me move on Saturday? And then it ends up taking all of Saturday and Sunday, and then like you're stuck paying the rental bill on the truck or something like that. That can happen for artists. When you're doing commissions, you may underestimate what is required, and the person who's commissioning you may also do the same thing. So when you're doing commissions, it's very important to know the value of your work, and that includes the time it takes to make it and the cost of your materials. And then it's also communicating with them what exactly they want. And I got into a conversation the other night with a friend who had approached me about doing a commission for a birthday present, and I passed on it. And I'm very glad I did, because the person she found who ended up doing it did an amazing job. And that's because the style was much more conducive to what that person does as opposed to me. I would have just overcomplicated it and it would have been ugly and gross. And she was very, very forgiving and understanding of that too. She knew that it wasn't just asking a friend who can draw to do this thing. She knew, I got to find somebody who can do it well and somebody who I can afford. So her attitude was spot on with seeking out an artist for this commission. So yeah, I guess, what was I saying? A part of it is when you're doing commissions, it's working with people. But then when you're doing freelance illustration, it's always also working with people. And then if you're doing just painting your own thing and trying to get that out there and into galleries and sold, you're going to be working with people. That's just life. And whatever you find, like even the dream jobs, you learn that people have, like, there's not a job out there that is 100% awesome, fluffy, yay. There's always going to be something about it that just sucks. You'll meet people who have the job that you want and they're complaining about something about it. And I'm guilty of that too. I have to stop and remind myself, hang on, I got it pretty good. I've avoided having to go into offices every day. I have a very flexible schedule. I'm pretty much making the stuff that I want to make. Although there is always that nagging pull of like, well, what's viral right now? What's the hot topic? That's always going to be there. But ultimately, like, there's good things about where I'm at with my career. And then there's so much that I can complain about. It's never going to be perfect. But it does sound like, Samantha, going back to your question, that nothing has really struck a chord with you. You're not very passionate about that. And that's completely fine. I feel you. There are some things that I've explored, jobs that I thought I was super passionate about. And then I actually got in there and learned what the job was. And I realized, you know what? Maybe this isn't what I want to do my entire life. # film school. So yeah, I would say maybe it's a matter of sitting down and reflecting, doing some journaling, maybe listing out the things that you enjoy, or you said you tried craft fairs and Etsy and stuff like that. Look back on those things that you've tried and pick them apart. Pick apart, what about it did you enjoy? And then what was it about those things that you really didn't like? And also take note of, what was successful financially versus what was unsuccessful. I will say, like, in my personal experience, I tried doing some craft fairs, and I found that to be really cool for meeting people. I really liked being present, and there's the satisfaction of having a physical stand with my work there. And there's something very like, it just kind of felt like, yes, I am doing it. It felt productive, but after the fact, it was perhaps the most unproductive and costly thing that I could have done. It costed money and time to prepare for the whole thing. It costed money to just costed money. Goodness. Oh, my cold medicine's kicking in. It cost money to set aside the booth. You pay your fees, all that stuff. And at the end of the day, like, I was in the red and didn't really sell anything. And I kind of networked with some other artists, but it felt like a lot of the buyers were just, people who like art, but, it wasn't like meeting a major art dealer or gallery owner or something like that. So, and that said, like, there could be people out there who had completely different experiences with craft fairs. It's different for everybody. And maybe some people just enjoy being in that environment. But I realized, okay, this isn't for me. Though at the time it felt like if I was going to be a serious artist, then I need to go to these craft fairs and get my work out there. So it's, it's really just a matter of figuring out what speaks to you. What is it that you're appreciating? And always, coming from a YouTuber, it's good to keep in mind that the scene is ever changing. When I was leaving high school, there was no YouTube, so I could not have predicted this happening. Podcasts weren't a huge thing or a thing. The word wasn't invented, I'm pretty sure. So, there's a bunch of platforms and places and formats that you can discover or create. That's another big thing, is maybe it's very easy to point to things that already exist, but maybe you're going to be inventing something that is unique and just for you, that feels right. So I would say do some reflection, take note of, all those things that worked and all those things that didn't work, and keep experimenting, keep dating those careers. One thing we can also like go down the scary path of what if maybe art isn't something that you want to do as a career. And I'm not saying like, okay, this is a very scary topic for anybody who has creative dreams. It's always looming over you. Like, what if you just shouldn't do this? I'm not saying that, Samantha. There's a difference between saying you shouldn't do this, in the sense that like you're just not good enough, or no one's going to like your work. Like that's the worst case scenario. But then there's also like, you don't want to do this. And I think some people are afraid or embarrassed to recognize that when they're feeling that, which is completely understandable, but that is an option. And maybe that is a thing. I definitely know there's a kid I went to high school with who was a very talented musician, and he kind of tried it for a bit, and he was like, what, I don't want to pursue this as a career. Like, I like playing music, but I don't like the business end of it, and I can play music at home perfectly fine. That's the thing that's completely valid. It's weird, like, having moved to Los Angeles, coming from the Midwest. To me, this city was like the land of Oz. It was always that shiny thing on the horizon, and it was a thing to be attained. And once you made it there, you leveled up. And then there was this fear of having to move back home. It's having to move back home is something that a lot of people avoid, especially in college, or if you've left your hometown to go and try and make it in the big city, kid. there's this, it's humiliating to have to go back and live with your parents and you feel like you failed. When I was living in Chicago, I knew people who had their going away party, they're going to LA and they're going to try and make it. And then 6 months, 9 months later, maybe a year later, they came back and they're like, it didn't work out. Couldn't find work. Rent's too high. And it just seemed like they were so crushed and defeated. And for some people, they had it in their mind that it was like, that was the only shot. There's no going back. And then it blew my mind later when I learned, oh, wait, you can move back home and then like return and try it again. Whoa, crazy. It's as if there's no rules. It's as if all these rules are just self-imposed by ourselves or outside forces. Gross. So yeah, I guess that's kind of like a scary thought to have, but it's an honest conversation to have with yourself. Go have a conversation with yourself, honestly, in the park. Let the strangers watch. If I could make a recommendation for a movie, total plug. We recently finally saw the movie Don't Think Twice. Mike Birbiglia's film. It's amazing. You may or may not have heard of it. I feel like it was a more limited release, but it's following an improv team in New York, but it's really exploring a group of people who have been creative friends for almost a decade, and they've been hanging out as friends, but then making art together. And you're seeing this group as they're moving forward with their lives. And some people are succeeding in some areas. And then some people are kind of declining or struggling, I would say. And then there are people who are stagnant in their lives and their art and don't know what they want to do with their creative selves. And it's a really heartbreaking movie because it does look at it honestly. In America, I think we're taught to be winners. Like there's only winners, no losers here. And I don't know. I think that's very unrealistic because you can be perfectly happy doing the thing that you like to do without that paying the bills. And for some people, they're like, yeah, I would much rather have a decent paying day job where I can have all the comforts that I need and want and support myself or support a family. And then on the weekends, I get together with my friends and we jam in the garage or whatever, with improv as an example. Improv doesn't pay. It's very hard to get paid to do it. And for me, it's but it's that creative outlet where I can go and hang out with my friends and make some funny things happen and watch some other funny things happen. And it's all improvised. And so we don't know what's going to go on. We just discover it together. And that's great. I don't feel like I need to get on Saturday Night Live or have it lead to some bigger career or whatever. I'm totally satisfied with my day job, which is art. So, yeah. I should talk. Blah. All right, let's move on to another question while we still have a little bit of time. I think I've throttled that one to death. This comment is from Robin Patter, who says, "Hey Mary, I'm planning on starting my own art YouTube channel. Congratulations!" That's awesome. And I have some questions I hope you might answer. Okay, question number 1. What camera do you use to film paintings? I am currently using the exact same camera I've been using the entire time. It's a Sony Handycam. What version is this? HDR CX160. It is definitely an older model. And I got this secondhand from a friend who was like, oh, I've upgraded my camera, so here you go, which was very, very awesome. And almost instantly it dropped and the record button fell off. So I can only use the touch screen to operate it. But you know what? It's been doing great. It's held up. It's a beast. It's a workhorse. I like it because it is fairly lightweight. It's not a DSLR camera, which I know a lot of that got like very popular with YouTubers and vloggers, which I think some people are moving away from it. Those are a little more professional, but the thing with them is that they overheat and turn off like every 12 minutes or something. The Handycam is great. Like I one time I accidentally left it recording. I thought I hit stop and just wandered away, and it had just like recorded the next couple hours, just a table with a half done painting. So it's a good camera. It doesn't have a lot of options with like changing out lenses and all that stuff, but for something that's like very basic and overhead, I think that's amazing. Let's see. Second question is, what editing software do you use? I use currently Adobe Premiere. I'm now into the Adobe cult once again. I mean, I grew up with Photoshop, and when I first started editing, though, I learned to edit on Final Cut Pro, and I tried Avid. It just didn't click with me at all. And hey, if Adobe or like other pieces or programs are a little out of your price range, I think YouTube does have editing. I don't know if it's good for like doing time lapse and dubbing music in. And I'm sure there's got to be like some free software out there or something that's like donation based. I don't know. It might be worth poking around. I would say like just give it a shot. You know, don't wait to save up for the perfect expensive camera and like get all the gear together. You know, just build your arsenal as you go. But I feel like that's the best way. Like, and this is more advice to myself because I know in the past I've hesitated because, well, you know, I don't have like the best microphone, so maybe I shouldn't make this thing. And it's okay. You may end up like making some crappy stuff because the equipment wasn't the best, but you can always upgrade, level up. Think of it as a video game. You know, you get started with what you got and then you can level up. Okay, third and final question is, what is a good way to start a channel and how did you promote yourself in the beginning? Oh, and this could almost be a whole other Artcast topic. But no, we got time. Wow. So the face of YouTube has been changing over the years. I got started in 2011, and that was just around the time when these MCNs were forming. That was when the entertainment industry was recognizing that YouTube was a competitor in a sense and a valid source of entertainment. And they were trying to figure out how to harness YouTubers and internet personalities for their gain. That's when the money hawks started circling this poor creative dough that was early YouTubers. So I lucked out and happened to be roommates with a guy who made a web series that blew up. And then he really appreciated my work and kind of pimped me out to his fans that he had made. So just do that, man. You know, it's not that hard. Like, I rolled out of bed and that happened. Starting a YouTube channel, first off, okay, let's like shove away like all those distracting things of numbers and popularity and YouTube celebrity, blah, 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 blah. Just focus and think to yourself, what kind of videos do I want to make? And then make them. Because you know what? You're not going to get all that other distracting stuff without good content. That's really what it boils down to as an artist. People could be arguing with that right now, like, but I do feel like if you like what you're doing, then do it. Yeah, okay, that's going to be the number one rule for starting a YouTube channel. Make sure you like what you're doing, because you know what? Let's say your dreams come true and the first thing you post goes viral, and then all of a sudden you got the most successful channel on YouTube. But you know what? You didn't really like that thing that you made. You just kind of made it because you thought it would be popular. Well, now everybody thinks of you as the person who made that thing, and they're expecting every new video to be that exact same thing. And that can cause you to go insane. I've witnessed that up close and personal. So make sure that the thing that you're working on is something that you like to work on. And you know what? When you're starting a channel, you have this beautiful opportunity to experiment too, because you're not known as that person, like the person who only paints with their toes. You know, you're not cornered into one thing. You can do art videos, and then you can shoot a vlog, and then maybe you could do an art review, or you could do a montage of street art in your area or from a vacation. You can play around with your format because right now there's no expectations. So might as well take advantage of that. So I would say figure out what it is that you want to make, be experimental, come up with a schedule. You know, it does take a bit of discipline, and, you know, you don't have to be a daily vlogger or, you know, do that in an unreasonable amount of time. You know, you could do monthly videos. If that's all that you can swing right now, great, go for that. And I would recommend early on, stockpile. Get a little bit ahead of your schedule and have them in your back pocket. You know, YouTube has a schedule upload feature, which is amazing. So you can get ahead of the game and not stress yourself out. As far as promotion goes, yeah, it's changed a little bit. And honestly, I do feel like it is going to be harder for new YouTubers to get discovered these days. But keep your eyes open for other artists on YouTube or musicians, you know, to collaborate with. Sharing is caring. If you like something that somebody makes, it might be worth reaching out and being like, hey, how can we do a collaboration? Or you can gift other artists with, you know, a video or shout out or drawings. Using Pete again as an example, before the epic rap battles of history, he was doing music videos, you know, just his own original songs on YouTube, and he wrote one for Shay Carl. Just wrote him a song and made a video for him, and it was a nice little gift. And sure enough, like, Shay Carl liked the song and like shouted him out, and like suddenly people who know and love Shay Carl are hearing him say, oh, I know and love this person, so of course they're going to go over and give it a look, you know. And that's how other channels can be discovered a lot of times. That's how I discover new podcasts. I'll listen to one of my favorites, and then they mention a podcast that then I go check that out, and now I have two favorites. So reaching out and working with other people that you admire and appreciate their work is always very good. And that just opened the floodgates for emails to me, which I apologize if I don't get back to them. My emails are so super backed up still from Burning Man. It's not even funny. So yeah, maybe, you know, you might not reach out to PewDiePie right away. You know, you could look around for like artists who, and like YouTubers who are kind of around a similar level. And you could find like maybe vloggers, do a portrait of them and be like, hey, do you want me to like do a design for your banner? Something like that. I think right now, with the way YouTube is, collaborating and reaching out is probably going to be the best way for you to get your stuff out there and be introduced to the world. So best of luck to you and your new YouTube channel. Please leave a comment below. Let us reply. Let us know what your new channel is. And for those of you who are listening, like, go check it out. Fresh new art on the internet. Yay! And with that, I will wrap up this Artcast, your Doodlebugs. I hope you enjoyed it. And once again, sorry for the sick voice and the sick energy, but hey, I just gotta exercise my immune system. So before I die, I just want to say thank you, everybody, for all of your comments and questions. I know I can't get to all of them and give them the amount of time that they deserve, but continue the conversation in the description or in the comments below. You can leave any thoughts on this episode and topics we covered, or on the artwork that you saw, or if you have any questions or any topics that you want me to cover in future videos. Comment. Sharing is caring. Give me your input, because your thoughts are important too. I'm just the loudest one here. Let's see. What else is happening? Oh, plug, by the way, if you like this Artcast and want a little bit more podcast with a little bit more of my voice in your brain, I have started podcasting with the lovely and talented Give Me Motion, also known as Dante, also known as an amazing musician, and he has a beautiful brain, so we're podcasting. Go to our SoundCloud is Peas in a Podcast. It's all dashes between the words, peas dash in a dash. But so, or you can find our Twitter is at Peas in a Podcast. You can find it on iTunes. This is very new, fresh, recent. We only have a couple episodes right now. We're trying to lock down our uploading schedule and make it a weekly thing. So you can go check that out. We just posted one that are our follow-up thoughts after going to Burning Man for a week. Yeah, so you can go check that out, and you can follow me on all the social medias at Mary Doodles on Instagram. I'm doing a daily doodle if you haven't seen those yet. And I got a Facebook page. We all hate it, but we have to follow the overlords if we're all gonna keep our social lives. Facebook's becoming YouTube and YouTube's becoming Facebook, and we can't stop it because the world keeps turning, and we need to be flexible and adaptable, or we die online. So go check me out on Facebook. And I have weekly art videos here on my YouTube channel every week. Art for your face. Thank you very much for watching and for listening, dear Doodlebugs. Goodbye.